The other weird thing that's happening though with these AI tools that is new to me is that people are willing to, when they see the power of certainly like the AI, the advanced AI models and AI chatbots, and increasingly with agents, people are more than willing to be like, "Oh yeah, I uploaded my rental agreement and my wedding vows and this and that, and I had it help me with this." And there's just this long line of both personal and professional things they're uploading without giving it a second thought, which is why it's incumbent on all organizations have a secure private instance of whatever model you're using, or have protections, contractual protections in place to protect that. But I think that if people get the excitement going, they're willing to share information. It's then incumbent on us to protect that information. And that's sort of the seat I sit in when we look at enterprise tools for AI and other things, right?
Welcome to the Wire Garage with Pops. We have Matt Coatney with us again, and we're talking about persona-based agentic AI or AI. So the days of the one-size-fits-all service portal are all over. In this episode, we're going to dig into one of the most exciting shifts happening in service desk automation right now, and that's the role-aware AI agents that actually know who they're talking to. So we're talking about virtual agents built to serve a developer differently than they serve someone in sales, HR, or finance, and not just a different greeting, but different, fundamentally different experience shaped by the role, the location, the device context, and even the recent ticket history. So this agent meets you where you are with the right information at the right time. So we're breaking down how these persona-driven agents are being designed and deployed in real enterprise environments. So what it takes to build them right, why most organizations are still leaving serious value on the table by treating self-service as a generic experience. So if you're in IT automation or just curious about what AI-powered service delivery is actually headed, this one's for you.
So, Matt, thank you again for joining us. Always a pleasure. Before we get into the tech, just a little bit of background in your world. What does your organization look like, and where does self-service and automation kind of fit into the day-to-day?
Yeah, happy to start there. So I am CIO at a fairly large national law firm, and that means I run everything from help desk and support to cybersecurity infrastructure, also analytics and AI and things of that nature, as well as research, library and research. So it's a pretty broad remit. And the legal industry is, in some ways we're ahead in areas, and other areas we're probably a little behind. Our biggest you know, key driver is the fact that we have, in my firm, about 200 CEOs in terms of owners, partners, right? So we have a very high demand, high touch, very valuable resources, very people intensive. And automation, particularly if it is made to feel sterile, generic, not personalized to them and their important sense of urgency about this thing that's sitting in front of them right now, it falls pretty flat. So it has traditionally been very people heavy on the support side, and even in person and on the phone. It's only since COVID switched to be more digital, which has allowed us to have some sense of light automation, light streamlining on the service desk. But where we're finding the greatest utility early is in just having a better sense of who the people are, what their ticket history is, following standard like ITSM. We can look up ticket history and assets, and being able to start to get that information into our analysts' hands more in real time versus having them peck around in a dashboard for 5 minutes when someone calls them in a panic. So yeah, it's a different environment, but it is, it is rewarding from the standpoint that we're actually able to make a big difference in their outcomes.
So when did you first realize that the generic one size fits all self-service wasn't cutting it anymore? Like, was there a moment, a specific failure or frustration that made it just obvious?
Yeah, I do. I can recall a couple of moments like that. I'm sure, Brian, in your past, you probably can as well. We have great service desk people. They're very passionate about their role and very service minded, but they don't understand necessarily. They don't understand lawyers. They don't understand the law, and they don't understand necessarily how some problems are truly urgent, right? I think we all came to know that there's a filing due at 5 p.m. And if the person's machine breaks at 4, that's a problem, right? And so, but the more nuance of, okay, this practice generally isn't busy for they're not busy, but they're normally busy for 11 months out of the year. But maybe it's an M&A practice or a tax practice, and there's that 1 month or even that 1 week where there's a deal that's 20% of their revenue for the year, right? If something goes wrong in that, like, very narrow, very almost personalized to that group's workflow and what matters to them in their business cycle, without that context, we just come in with sort of our generic approach of solving problems, and it's going to fall flat with them because we don't understand their sense of urgency. So that's an example, but it even gets into ways they use the tools differently, different workflows, different personality types. That if we're just delivering one size fits all service across the board from staff person and first year associate to senior partner, we're going to have a problem. So that sort of differentiation has been something that's been really more ad hoc in many firms I've worked with, and we're just now starting to really codify what that means and putting some structure around it. And we're getting there, right? I think that's part of the ITIL and ITSM model, right? So yeah, it's been a journey.
Kind of aligning to that business criticality there.
Yes.
How so? And this feels like such a weird question because we are still. It feels like we're early in the agentic world, but really the time span for any innovation in this space is so short lived that by next week there's a new solution, a new announcement, something. So I mean, even in the NVIDIA just had an announcement, I think yesterday, with RTX Spark, a new processor, unified memory, going to be agentic agents in everybody's computers working along for them. How far along are most organizations when it comes to, or maybe just you personally, when it comes to persona based, role aware AI agents? Would you even say this is mainstream, a best in class thing, or this is still kind of science fiction at this point?
I'd like to put folks' mind at ease that it is not mainstream. To my experience, it is not mainstream in most organizations yet. So it's definitely, you know, not science fiction. The capabilities are there. I think there are definitely leading organizations that are best in class that are starting to do this. But the majority of organizations, sort of the big middle, small, medium enterprises, aren't quite there yet. And, that's as much anymore, it's more of an adoption and change management and privacy conversation than it is a technology conversation yet. Technologies are increasingly getting there, but the skills to enable them and the governance and change management to actually like make it stick, make it work without feeling like you're breaching someone's privacy. That's where I think many of us are currently.
So, yeah, so stepping on this a little further, role aware agents live or die on data quality, right? So, many of these organizations like have not probably taken that step because their ticket history isn't clean, user profiles like you mentioned are exposed or has information out there, device context, just knowledge period. In your experience, how ready is that average enterprise data infrastructure to support role aware AI agents?
Great point. Yeah, I mean, it's right there in the name. It's persona based agents, right? And if you don't have an ability to understand who it is and what they do and what equipment they're working with and what their history is and all of that, you've lost all that data. How can you be personalized? I do think, most organizations, it is a work in progress to get the data clean enough to be workable and yield good outcomes. It's never going to be perfect, but I do think organizations, like, they shouldn't let the lack of perfection stymie their progress. There are, I'm sure, areas that are important to them where the data is clean and that could be a good place to start. The other thing to your point is privacy has always like this is at LexisNexis, and this was years ago, 15 years ago, talking with their head of search. And they said, and Google has said the same thing, right? The things we could do for you if you would only let us know who you were, right? So they've had capabilities decades ago to make personalized search and personalized experiences be really impactful. But there's a comfort level of how much are you willing to share? What does that look like? Are you comfortable with it? Now, that was 20 or 15 years ago. Many of us have gotten much more laissez-faire about our personal information, but
Everything's
right?
exposed everywhere 10 times.
Everything's
Well,
exposed anyway. You're
everything's
like, "Oh,
free.
sure, have it." Yeah. So I think that it weirdly works in our advantage. We should not take advantage of that, though. But yeah, I think that there's a balancing act there, but there's a lot of data that's already there. AI is making it easier to get the kind of data that's meaningful for this type of personalization without bothering the person, making them enter a lot of information or sort of opening the door for everything, right? So there's this way to capture this sort of called data exhaust. Ticket history is a great example. Assets are a great example. What systems they have, what software they have. That's known information. No one could argue that's private or sensitive. It's just good background to have. And most of that data can be gleaned if you're not already doing it. Easier said than done, I know.
So when you're rolling out something like this, and you mentioned it earlier, the technology is the easier part. When you think about the OCM or the human side of this conversation, the folks using the technology, the end users, the managers, who's skeptical, and how do you convince them essentially in that adoption conversation? Has that been
Yeah.
a challenge?
It depends. I've found there is a lot of obstacle to a concern about Big Brother, rightfully so, right? Why are you, and I see it a lot with communication channels, so Teams or chat, email. Who's looking at it? Why are you looking at it? Why do you need to know availability, the little availability indicator on Teams? The
Yep.
consternation that has sent poor IT departments and managers. Anyway, so I think if it's focused around that kind of like sensitive, personal ish, like Big Brother concerns, that's a hard road to head down. But conversely, if it's something that is either just baked into the system they're using, and the service, service desk, ServiceNow is a great example of that. They're calling, they have a history, they know they have a history with you, as long as you're not including perhaps some disparaging words about them in your commentary and it's more matter of fact, then yeah, they have no problem with that. I don't think most people wouldn't. So I think when it's part of the workflow, it's just natural, it's expected. You can get over that hurdle a little bit easier. The other weird thing that's happening though with these AI tools that is new to me is that people are willing to, when they see the power of certainly like the advanced AI models and AI chatbots, and increasingly with agents, like our conversation about everything being out there anyway, people are more than willing to be like, oh yeah, I uploaded my rental agreement and my wedding vows and this and that, and I had it help me with this. And there's just this long line of both personal and professional things they're uploading without giving it a second thought, which is why it's incumbent on all organizations have a secure private instance of whatever model you're using or have protections, contractual protections in place to protect that. But I think that if people get the excitement going, they're willing to share information. It's then incumbent on us to protect that information. And that's sort of the seat I sit in when we look at enterprise tools for AI and other things, right?
Let's say just going down that road a little bit, because it just brought me just thinking a little bit about some of the challenges of tier zero. So it's our same organization. We're not sitting this to the internet. It's all staying within the company, right? It's a tier zero service desk. We offer it, let's say, through Teams. There's a support channel through Teams. They can type in their questions, and then the virtual agents are acting there with all the information you provided, with knowledge and profiles, CMDB, everything else. But they uploaded, we'll say, documents that had PII or PHI of clients or some other sensitive information that I don't know about help desk helping you, can't see it. Maybe there should be some guard. I mean, there are probably some things there to think about protecting your service desk from things happening. But it's not unlike they can just attach to an email and an email help desk, right? It's the same thing, but I guess you kind of think about it differently in this or it gives you a chance to pause, say, wait a minute, we shouldn't accept all of this right into like for us service now and have this document hosted in my ticketing system because now I got to protect it differently.
Yes, absolutely. And it happens all the time. Hey, I was having problems opening this document. Can you have a look? And they attached the document, which was
Mhm.
totally fine. It opened just fine, except it contained sensitive client data, right? And so there are definitely systems and checks and balances you can put in place that can prevent that. For instance, on our service desk, we do auto ticketing through email. Any attachments are
Links.
stripped. Yeah, like sort of stripped, moved somewhere else, not stored indefinitely. The help desk person can still get to it if they need it, but it's not maintained in our hosted environment. And that's just one example. It gets trickier with AI agents because they could take that data and do something with it. They could store it in a file share, they could read it, they could email it back out. I mean, they could technically do anything they want with it, and they may be training on that as data. So you do need to be extra careful as you start to bring agents into the equation. It's not just
Mhm.
people anymore and then help desk.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
There's actually a really interesting tool that was released not too long ago. Microsoft released it. It's called Market Down, and there's a repo. There's like 125,000 stars already on that repo, and it will take like a PDF, a Word file, whatever, convert it to Markdown. And I'm thinking it would probably be easier to remove PII from a file if it's in Markdown versus you have the image of a PDF. So maybe something to look into, a little nugget for folks on this episode.
Mark it down. Love it.
so how do you build the ROI for persona-based service delivery for a CFO or CEO who doesn't really speak IT, who may be sort of concerned about the AI world, right? So what metrics would actually move the needle in those conversations with them?
Yeah, I can share certainly from our experience just on the service desk side, and then we can expand from there. But in a law firm, again, escalations tend to go from the individual contributor analyst straight to the CIO, COO, or managing partner, without not much in between, even if there's multiple layers. So it's that noise factor is real. And if there's if there is a soft benefit of cutting down on that noise coming to one of those individuals because we're able to react more quickly, better quality and more personalized experience, and a happier client customer, there's honestly no better ROI than that in many cases for an IT organization, because we are the face. The support is the face of the entire organization. So you can be doing the most amazing innovation and AI and this and that. And if you have a less than stellar frontline, and that's the people's lived experience as customers, you don't live long as a CIO or as a leader. So that's one, but that's just very focused on service desk, and obviously sort of the typical metrics of responsiveness and satisfaction and things like that are very easy to point to and see improvements in. When I think about ROI beyond that and the personalization, I mean, I'll speak from personal experience in the law, but there are probably other applications as well. There's always this tension between the fact that we are a loose confederation of partners, senior partners with their own practices and their own businesses, and a little bit of a rebellious streak to say, well, I'm just going to do it my own way. I'm my own entrepreneur. They're entrepreneur. They built their book of business, which means you have 200, 300, 400 snowflakes of ways that they like to do just about everything, even
Mhm.
if it's not adding value per se. And so if you could bring in agents to say review invoices and standardized language and things like that, like if you could come in and help them have their own customized view of personalized view of the world while making that sustainable and scalable, like that's the unlock, because the two things are either support a really expensive infrastructure to support this uniqueness, or try to force them into standardization, which is incredibly difficult to do with, again, hundreds of entrepreneurs. And so I think you can get sort of the best of both worlds if you take that concept and allow that personalization, give them the ability to have, again, like personalized help, like your own. Imagine you had your own agent that does things just the way you want to, that doesn't require a staff of hundreds of people to support all that. Like that's maybe the pipe dream, but that's, back to your point about, is this all mainstream? No, no, that's definitely more cutting edge.
It's a difficult one. I think you're right. I mean, you want to say this is efficient for, first call close, a lot of things like that, but then you don't want to show that your team is inept or not able to, doing things correctly.
Right.
Or that you're going to lose all your team because now you can do everything in AI, which is never the truth, right? And so it's a difficult thing to do, but I think it's somewhere you have to go because you're always being pushed on resources. You're always being pushed on quality. And if you can get rid of some of the easier answers and let people just ask a system a question and get the answer right away and walk away and not have to deal with waiting on a phone call, waiting on hold, waiting on callback, all those other system things that we fail at, I think there is a benefit there for tier zero.
Yeah.
And like you
And I,
said, the custom stuff is really the rainmaker for it all, is to hit the practice directly, not do IT. So
well, and to your point, the self serve, we are working on and experimenting ourselves. There is really something to be said for that. Intranets are a great example where there's hundreds, if not thousands, of pages of information out there, some up to date, some stale, contradicting, impossible to find things. Search doesn't really solve the problem. But there's a lot of great intelligence out there about who does what and who knows what, and all that tribal knowledge. That's a great use case for having agents that sort of are aware to who you are and what you care about, and being able to serve up that content. So not just how to's and support kind of things, but also who to contact in marketing for this, or what's the latest, corporate PowerPoint template that we need to use. All these kind of questions that teams get inundated with phone calls and emails, not just IS, not just service desk. So I think that there's definitely opportunity there. And then, back to Steele about your point about NVIDIA, Spark, and all that, not to be lost on, these are incredibly resource intensive things.
Mhm.
There's always been a push, a desire to move everything to cloud. And, you see it with Copilot and Microsoft sort of reaching into everything SharePoint and Exchange. So it can do all these things in the cloud. But at the end of the day, the person that's working on their desktop, that's working on things other than Microsoft, has all these tabs open. They have all these applications open. They've got, Outlook loaded personally. There's a lot of opportunity to do magic within all of that data that's floating around in the memory of the machine, that's coming up and down from the cloud. That's probably going to be more efficient and, again, personalized without piercing the veil of privacy
Mhm.
locally on the desktop. So I do think, like, is it going to evolve into everybody having OpenClaw on their on their NVIDIA PC sitting under their desk? No, but I think there is potential to pull some of that back down closer to the source. Yeah.
Looking forward to see more about that when that comes out. But that's what caught my eye most is being able to supposedly, and again, air quotes, but being able to leverage frontier models locally without having to depend on the cloud. I mean, it seems contradictory to everything that we've seen thus far. And I guess it really will come down to the use case on, do you really need it in the cloud? Do you really need it local? All I know is that no matter where you are and what your use case is, NVIDIA has it covered. I can't wait to see what the price on 128 gig unified memory is going to be on a Windows machine. So yeah, we're talking about it. There is a trust dimension here, and you have that context. The virtual agent knows your role, your location. It's like a knowledge graph. It knows everything about you. Is there a natural line between helpful and intrusive? And is that really just whatever the compliance manager says is the line?
I've learned that lesson is never, the answer is always no. Yeah, no, no, the compliance manager doesn't get to choose. I do think there's some element of control where the person should be able to decide what's included and what's not, to a realm where that's feasible. There is a risk of being over inclusive, and just so back to, we made a comment probably the last time we chatted, where there is this sense that once you start to get really enamored with these tools and you see their capabilities, to really just cede everything over to them. And I've had people who are in senior roles in regulated industries say, well, can I just point it to my email and have it just read all my emails and tell me what I need to focus on for today? I just want the punch list. And I'm like, you're going to cede that decision to a glorified search engine. And what happens if it misses that really important thing that a client demanded that was due today? And oops, the AI missed it. Back to a point about accountability. Like, can you just
Yeah.
say, well, my agent messed up? So I do think even if it's not a privacy or intrusiveness concern, you do need to be mindful of how much you let it turn loose and let people sort of just have it run with things. Like there needs to be again that personal accountability and responsibility. All that said, like the knowledge graph and the opening things up, the concern that I've seen more frequently, and I have the same concern, things like Copilot's a good example, isn't so much what's my personal information in there, it's what else is out in my organization that someone didn't secure properly, that was sensitive, and now it's easy to find because I can just ask Copilot, hey, Copilot, what are the top 10 salaries of our executives in my company? Which is a real world example. Thankfully, it didn't happen at our organization, but it's happened at an organization where someone relayed the story. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's problematic. So it's that we've had this concept of security by obscurity, which basically means it was open and wide open all along, but nobody could find it. And then
Mhm.
you bring in search engines, and some enterprising young person decides to search for comp or termination letter or fill in the blank. And there's a panic. And so I think that there's these kind of instances just continue to get more obscure and difficult to track down when you layer in an intelligence layer like AI. So that like to me, that's so not personal intrusiveness, but it's an organizational risk that the compliance manager does have a say in and say, okay, we need to make sure we're locking this down appropriately. So those kind of embarrassing things don't happen.
There maybe on the local or personal side, some kind of tweaking configuration so they can decide what to opt into or opt out of. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And for our
Real
listeners that
unfortunate.
are Yeah, for our listeners that are old enough to remember this, way back in the day in like the early 2000s, personal search engines, desktop search engines were all the rage. Fast had one, Microsoft got into the gig. I think even like Autonomy may have tried it. Anyway, and like it was the same kind of thing. Like you could check which things, resources you wanted to search. This was pre cloud days. So if you didn't have that, you had no search really, no sort of enterprise wide search because everything was sitting on your desktop. Yeah, interestingly, I like we're sort of getting back to that a little bit, but only in terms of the processing power and sort of that personalized view.
So if you fast forward 3 years from now, and this is only 3 years, that's not a lot of time. What does the service experience look like for your employees, and what's possible that isn't possible today?
Yeah, I think much more self-serve is an obvious one because we're already heading in that direction. But I'm really more interested in self-tuning and self-fixing across the board. I'm still waiting for providers to sort of catch up to that eventuality. But
So, so,
you know,
so,
yeah,
so
go
one
ahead.
approach I have for self tuning, I don't know if this is what you're meaning, but like in ServiceNow, we have like the product was Now Assist for ITSM, for example. And so you're in your incidents. What it could do is it's not tier zero yet, but your agents, your physical individual human agents are answering or responding to tickets, but it's bringing them information like, hey, the last ticket like that was answered this way,
Yeah, yeah.
or is giving some predictive guidance from
Hmm.
history. It was helping them write closure notes. It was saying, hey, here's a KB article, do you like this? And so you can publish it pretty quickly, where they hate to write public,
Hmm.
hate writing
Hmm.
things, right? But it's, to me, it's like taking real stuff that's going on and letting them vet it and use it, and then appropriately apply it, hopefully.
Hmm.
And now you're building a clean system for like 6 months or a year. And now your tier zero, to me, is cleaned up or is cleaner. You know what I mean? Because you've used AI of what it was going to tell it, and you're kind of teaching AI, okay, no, that's not important. This is important. This is what will apply. And but because you got the human agents in the middle, so it pauses you a little bit. But Do you think that's a process that would help people kind of prep and clean your knowledge and your ticket
Mhm.
history and things for
Yes,
tier
and
0?
I think so, and I've already seen some organizations, and even some vendors sort of heading down that direction pretty quickly. So I think that's very much within grasp even today, let alone 3 years from now. So I think continue to improve the productivity of the team, the sharing of capturing of the knowledge, things like that. Yes, I think those are definitely gonna be mainstream pretty soon. Further out, when I think of self-diagnostic, self-tuning, it's like at the device, the Windows machine, you get an update on a Friday, it hoses one of your applications, it detects that because it's launched a test script behind the scenes and oops, it didn't work. So it's rolling it back. It's submitting a ticket to the help desk behind the scenes to say, hey, this failed. Follow up with this, like that kind of stuff. That's more, there is so much that could be done at tooling at the end users capability that just no, there's products out there that try, but no one's really cracked that nut yet.
Mm-hmm.
3
Well,
years seems like a long time. Maybe we'll get there.
I
yeah,
mean,
3
I
years long. Yeah, yeah.
thoroughly enjoy going to the little, oh, sorry, this isn't working. Would you like to troubleshoot? Click the troubleshoot and it loads and just nothing
Nothing.
happens. Yep.
Nothing. Yeah, they probably haven't touched that code since some intern wrote it in 2005.
Yep. Or
Yeah,
earlier.
or earlier. Yeah.
So if a CIO, hello, or IT director in the audience is just starting to think about this, what's the one thing that you would tell them before they kick off their first project to investigate persona based agents or this experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think know that you're not going it alone. Like the first thing I'd actually recommend is talk to peers. Go to conferences, talk to vendors that are doing this. Just get smarter on what the current state is, where it's heading, what are some of the gotchas. Like for me, that's that education because so much of, particularly at more at the like service desk and IT director, we're so insularly just bombarded at the fire drill of the day that we lose sight that there's other folks out there. So, like our head of support, I encouraged her to go to the ILTA, the Legal Trade Association, to get to meet some of her peers from within industry because she came from another industry, significant chops, but came in as like, what's this law thing? So I think just that networking is big. I mean, beyond that, I am a big believer, just generally speaking, with AI, that no leader is immune to having to learn how to work with this. Like, you cannot, I've said it before, like, me personally, I don't feel that you can lead an organization into the future without really internalizing what this capability is. And you have to not only see it, but use it to believe it. And it changes your perspective. So I say get out there and use this stuff. Again, just dabble, try it out, low stakes, low cost. And then I think you can start to connect more dots than you could have before.
So, is there someone in the room that you want to bring in that usually is that room for that discussion?
Yeah, I would get our stakeholder, the people we're trying to support, get them in the room with us and not their management. Like get the individuals, have a small advisory group or stakeholder group of the people that are actually impacted by this most. And much like any organizational change management, at least sort of want to mix. You want the people that are certainly more vocally on your side and will be your champions, but you also want the detractors, you want the naysayers. As long as they don't completely torpedo everything, you need their perspective to challenge and push you. So yeah, that's the first folks that come to mind.
Last one I have for you. This is more personal, I guess. But what are you reading, watching, or listening to right now that's shaping how you think?
I'll give I'll give 2 answers, one professional, one personal. So on the professional front, I've been following Ethan Mullick on LinkedIn for a long time. He's a professor at Wharton, Pennsylvania, Wharton School, and he's all things AI. He's a good source. He's all over LinkedIn, and he's a good source for really sort of smart takes on the progress of AI, some of the organizational and societal challenges, and is pretty good at calling BS on things. So he's been great to follow. A couple of other sources and articles, but he's the primary one, to be honest. Another one that someone recommended me lately that's in the same camp is, see if I can pull up the name real quick. I get an email from him every morning. Shelley Palmer, who is a professor out of maybe Syracuse. But yeah, those two are great ones. And then personally, I'm just a big buff of history, so I'm reading an account of 1942 in the U.S. right after Pearl Harbor, and just how and it's all based on contemporary accounts of newspaper articles and journals and things like that. And it's just fascinating to be living in an era, again, sort of like a big transformational moment. To be living inside of it is a bit of a head warp because you hear the greatest generation. And of course, we were going to become victorious. We were these great heroes. And then you go back and look and like, oh, many people didn't think we were going to win that war. Like it was a bleak couple of months coming out of that. And what was accomplished with production, like just turning the complete country on a dime. Like it was just like I get goosebumps talking about it. It's just, yeah, it's just an amazing story. So yeah, there you go.
Good, good. I have some old letters. My grandfather, that I never met, of course, died on D-Day as a paratrooper. And I have his letters that he wrote to my grandma when my mom was a baby. And just it enlightened me on how much they did not know what was going on in the world and how scared but committed.
Hmm.
I mean, it was like they were very tossed, like, I don't want to go, but I know this is what we got to do. I don't know if I'm going to the Pacific or if I'm going to Europe. I don't know if I'm fighting the Germans or the Japanese, and he's jumping. This is something new too. They didn't have paratroopers much then. They were learning to jump in like Tennessee and Georgia and North Carolina, and this is all new. And it was just very revealing how brave they were, but how much they did not know what was even going on in the world. So
Amazing. Yeah. What a story.
well, here's what I take away from this one. Most organizations aren't behind on technology, they're just behind on the thinking. So, persona based service delivery isn't an IT project, it's a people strategy that happens to run on a platform. So, when you're designing for the individual instead of the average, everything changes: adoption, trust, deflection, the whole picture. So if you're an IT leader listening to this right now, that's the shift worth making. Thanks to our guests for keeping it real with us today. Matt, it's always been great having you here. Subscribe, share, leave a review if this was worth your time, and we'll be back in the garage soon. I'm Pops. It's the Wired Garage.
Cheers.